Life is a casino. We don't sink, we just hit them off with C-notes. And you can bet it all. I'ma be the last one standing tall. Joey Merlino.
What's up, G?
Life is a casino. We don't sink, we just hit them off with
Tell us about it, fellas.
And you can bet it all. I'ma be the last one standing tall. Joey
Skinny
Merlino.
with Joey Merlino.
Welcome back to the Skinny with Joey Merlino and Lil Snuff. Today we're live, Boca Raton, Florida, Podcast Junkie Studio, where it's nice and warm. I got out of Philly where it's rainy and cold. Special guest on the podcast, Nick Matassini, is back in the house. I think this is your third time, right, Nick? Fourth time on the podcast. Before we get started on what we're really going to talk about today, we got to dive into a couple things that are just circling the internet. What's up, Baba? How you doing?
What's happened? What happened? I want the people to see you ain't orange no more. Last week you were orange. Look at your tin.
Joe, it was the lighting.
Your fucking balls lighting.
Yes, it was.
I wish I had the picture from last week.
Well, we could get the picture. I'll add it in. They know I don't go tanning.
Tanning.
I'm naturally
tan. You look like Snooki. Get the fuck out of here.
Scott, it's just Nick. You see what I got to deal with?
Nick,
You look great.
Yes, thank you.
He lost weight. He looks good.
Thank you, Nick.
You did lose weight. He's down to one chin.
Yeah.
That's what you got, one chin.
I know. I
You
had
had
a lot
three.
of them.
You're down to one.
All right. Enough of me. I got to get into something, Joe, that's been all over the internet, and we've been getting hit with the DMs left and right. Sammy the Bull. What is happening with this guy?
Guy's a fucking nut.
Stone cold.
He's a fucking predator, stalker, fucking rapist. He fucking molesting girls. He's a fucking... I blame the judge that sentenced him and the U.S. attorneys. He killed 18 people, 19 people. One, he lied about the young kid. They still never solved that. He got 5 years. He did 1 year in jail. 1 year in jail. They let him out.
Mm-hmm.
He sold ecstasy. He fucking poisoned fucking thousands of college kids. He went away again. The FBI was going to let him off the hook, but the Arizona didn't play that. He went to jail again. Now he got out again. He rapes girls. He molests girls, whatever the fuck he does. All the people that work for him.
And it's
pulling his dick out, fucking sticking his tongue down his throat, molesting him.
It's crazy. It really
But I blame the judge and the prosecutor.
But what do they have to see for this guy to change what he's doing? Like, how could you just keep allowing this?
He's too old to change at this point. He is who he is.
Yeah.
But what, like Joe said, it's a disgrace that he was given the deal that he got, being the person that he is, and his true colors have shown. He hasn't changed.
Yeah.
He's doing the same shit.
I wish we could do it. If we could do a thing with all these rats, but they got different names, so you don't know. Right. Believe me, they all commit crimes. You see them all. They all get locked the fuck up. Mm-hmm. But they just got a license. Nothing happens to them.
Nothing.
They're on the internet threatening us every day. If I said one word like that, I'd be locked up in 3 seconds.
Yep.
But they got a license. It should happen to the U.S. attorney and the judge's daughters. See how they like it.
There's an allegation Sammy was brandishing a pistol, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm going by what the girl said. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Now, I want to ask you a question. If I'm a convicted felon, if I get caught with a gun, I'm getting 15, 20 years immediately. How the fuck's he allowed to have a gun?
He's not supposed to. So even if your name is changed, right, in the witness protection program, it doesn't mean you continue to possess a firearm. That's just not okay. So he's clearly breaking the rules, committing crimes, and he's doing it with impunity because he doesn't give a shit. He's already been given so many chances and so many green lights to do what he wants. He thinks he can do whatever he wants, and it sounds like that's what he's doing.
Are you sure about that, though? Because these motherfuckers, all of them on the internet, say, you come to my house, I got to stay on the ground, they ain't saying I'll shoot you, but stay in your ground means shoot you. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
karate chop you?
You know, even if you're a convicted felon, you're entitled to defend yourself. You're entitled to defend your home, but you still can't possess a firearm if you're a convicted felon. So, you know, he'd have a hell of a time showing any kind of exigent circumstances that required him to arm himself when he's a knowing convicted felon who's not allowed to possess one. So, if I were the prosecutor over there, I would look at that and consider charging him for being a felon in possession of a firearm, no question, irrespective of the witness protection program. He blew all of those protections long time ago.
Yeah, he's a fucking serial killer. Picture living next door to him. They should do that, like the Megan's Law.
Yeah.
They should. I said it. They should tell you. You want to know who's living next door to you? The fucking guy killed 19 people. He's your fucking neighbor.
He looks like one of the aliens from Area 54, right?
He,
you know, I think they found him in the capsule. And
I think that you got to face that ugly motherfucker.
But how many?
He's a homo too. He's gay. He's everything.
Well, that was the brother-in-law, right? The brother-in-law.
Yeah, he fucked the brother-in-law. That's why he killed the brother-in-law.
Yeah.
He's gay. He's a fucking child. He does it all. He ain't missed nothing.
Well, how many times does he have to get in trouble for them to say, "Wow, something's really wrong here"? We gave this guy the best deal of his life.
They don't give a fuck.
Yeah, he's already 80. I mean, but after he ratted on Gotti and was sentenced and given a sweetheart deal, everybody knows he went out and was basically selling ecstasy to any young kid in Arizona.
Yeah.
He had a big ecstasy ring. He did a lot of time for that. And, the feds basically had to, lose
Well, the feds didn't know about that. The state charged him. They
They eventually found out.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah,
but
they
it was
eventually
too late.
found out.
But
It
if
was
they
too
would've
late,
told
right?
Before, they would have tipped them off, and they would have squashed it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And unfortunately, everybody who went to trial where Sammy the Bull was a witness against him, right? They didn't know about any of that. They didn't have the impeachment information available to him at the time about the crimes and misdeeds he was committing as Arizona because he was hiding it from everybody.
Listen, see how they said he got 5 years? He didn't do no 5. He did a year. I had the 2 rats on my father's case, Nicky Crow and Tommy Dull. They were on the stand. And it was funny. They had him in, I think it was Crow. They had him in fucking Virginia somewhere, some fucking where, like, somebody that we knew was there. It was a condo. They went for a vacation. They're sitting around a pool drinking fucking Crows at the bar.
They don't go to regular prisons, right? They go to country clubs
Yeah,
that
yeah.
don't
Well,
have fences.
No,
you
but
know,
it wasn't. This motherfucker was at a resort, like the fucking Boca Resort.
That's
So
crazy.
the lawyer asked him, he said, you've been in jail? He said, how long you been? He said, well, I'm not in jail. They had me in a hideout, like a condo. I was behind invisible bars. Motherfucker, you were in a resort drinking at the bar. What fucking jail's that?
That's crazy.
But they count that time for them.
Yeah, they do.
No, it's crazy.
Who got the hookers? Didn't
Tommy
they get
Dell.
hookers?
Yeah,
Tommy
Tommy
Dell
Dell.
got hookers.
So Tommy Dell's one of the witnesses in the case we're going to
this
talk
case.
about today. So we're here today to talk about the Frankie Flowers murder and prosecution. So it's kind of a good way to begin. So for those of you who don't know, there was a murder prosecution in Philadelphia that made big headlines, of course, but it became even more famous, frankly, for the appellate ruling, reversing the conviction.
And before we get into the episode, make sure you head over to Patreon for the full episode. Sign up now.
You ain't going to believe when you hear this how crooked they were. That fucking Ron Castile, the one-leg motherfucker. He was the district attorney. He had one leg.
He had to hop to court, I heard.
He did. You know what he used to do? I swear to God. Because he could have the fake leg. He used to walk in with the one leg to make the
To get a little
jury.
sympathy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
To make it
my
even
father
more.
said if he got the death penalty, he was going to donate his leg to him. When they kill him, give him the fucking leg.
Little line.
But yeah, let's talk about the case because it's interesting. For me, it's extremely interesting as a lawyer because of the appellate ruling. And the appellate court reversed a first-degree murder conviction, which they are very loath to do. So anytime a case gets appealed, it's a significant case, a violent crime case, and there's lots of legal issues that go up to the appellate court. The appellate courts try their best to affirm the conviction, if you can understand that.
Yeah.
They do their best to try and make sure the person still remains convicted. But, sometimes there are compelling legal arguments that require reversal. So in this particular case, there were several legal arguments that just required reversal, and they couldn't just overlook the misconduct and what happened in the trial. But believe me, Supreme Courts, appellate courts are always trying to uphold the conviction, and it's very, very difficult for an appellate lawyer, for a trial lawyer to win on appeal. So what happened here is remarkable. You have life sentences that were handed out after the first trial. Everybody's convicted as charged, life sentence. And then you have multiple years of appeals. And then you've got a retrial that happens almost 10 years later where everybody ends up getting acquitted and found not guilty. And that's remarkable.
Yeah.
It rarely happens. And so we're going to talk about how that worked out, the arguments that were made, the issues that were raised on appeal, what happened with the defendants. And so it's a nice little time capsule into that area of Philadelphia and what happened at that time. And what's remarkable is that Philadelphia seems to be a jurisdiction where a lot of misconduct occurs.
Yeah.
And I'll read a quote from the Supreme Court about that. And that's unusual for a Supreme Court to go out and actually state in an appellate opinion that this particular jurisdiction has so many problems, we need to bring it to your attention and tell you on retrial, don't pull that bullshit, which is basically what they said.
You know how crooked they were? Barbara Christie, Castile, all of them. They buried guys. You know how many kids they gave life sentences? But it was all, they were paying the witnesses, all kind of shit. A lot of guys got out. A lot of guys got their cases over.
Yo, Philly, it's your boy Brandon Graham. When I need to shine, I go see Joe and Michelle over at Bucci's Jewelry and Design. Voted Philly's #1 jewelry store over 25 years. With holidays around the corner, Bucci is stocked with original top quality custom pieces for any budget. If you can dream it, Bucci can make it. Hit up BucciJewelers.com and sign up for their newsletter. Tell them BG sent you.
Let me read the quote before we get started today, because this is important. It says, we are especially, and this is the Supreme Court. All right, so this is the appellate court in Philadelphia giving a written opinion about a murder conviction that they're now reversing and sending back to the trial court to do it all over again. But they take some time at the end of the opinion to write some specific language at the district attorney's office in Philadelphia. And it says, "We are especially concerned that prosecutorial misconduct seems to arise in Philadelphia County more so than in any other county in this Commonwealth." All right, and they go on to basically say that you need to do your job and not violate the rules. And they say, look, we want you to prosecute crimes, but you've got a role as the public prosecutor to do so with fairness, with justice, with a sense of professional responsibility. And these improper arguments, this improper conduct, you know, is not what we think a district attorney's office should be seeking and should be trying to achieve as far as what they're prosecuting.
And they came out with that comment. How many people are in jail still because they don't have the funds or the resources to overturn their case?
You know how many people got out though? I mean, with Barbara Christie and Castile and all them, they were. And look at all the guys we had. Joey Marone's got all them guys.
Yeah.
Did 43 years. Fucking innocent. Let him out.
A lot of cases. A lot of cases in Philadelphia County with prosecutorial. And prosecutorial misconduct means that the prosecutor trying the case is doing something wrong.
Yeah.
He's doing something unethical. He's making improper comments to the jury. He's bringing in and talking about evidence that he shouldn't be talking about. He's doing things behind the scenes with witnesses like they did with Eugene Milano, which we'll see here. And so that's what we're talking about when we say misconduct. Prosecutors are doing things that they're not supposed to do to get an unfair advantage to obtain a conviction at trial, right?
Yeah.
Prosecutors are not supposed to just seek guilty verdicts. They're supposed to seek justice. They're supposed to seek fairness, a just resolution to the case, not just guilty verdicts. But what we see is they want scalps. Yep. They're scalp hunters. And so in Philadelphia County in particular, they would violate their ethical rules. They would violate their duties as officers of the court and present false testimony, pull underhanded shit with witnesses like we're going to see now.
And everybody got life sentences. Took 10 years for this to come back into court, and then we could go over the timeline of how this started and how it ended.
Yeah, pull up the timeline. So everybody's got to understand that this was a saga, essentially. This lasted several years. This isn't a murder where there was a prosecution, a conviction, and everything happens within a couple of years. So I put in here a date in 1980 for the purposes of the story, because what you have to understand is that the prosecution comes to the trial with a theory. They have to tell a story.
Okay.
And the story was that Angelo Bruno was killed and somebody else took over, and that somebody else was Nicky Scarfo. But Nicky Scarfo, when he took over, apparently didn't like Frankie Flowers. And Frankie Flowers D'Alfonso was somebody who was friends with Bruno, and Nicky thought he owed him money, and that was the prosecution's theory. So they tried to set up this motive, this background story about why Nicky would have wanted to do harm to Frankie Flowers. And so it starts off with...
They had the fake news back then.
Yeah, so
they made up all
that,
stories.
you can take the timeline down. But in 1981, Frankie Flowers is beaten badly, all right? And he's, in the hospital for a couple months. And they tried to blame that essentially on Scarfo. So Eugene Milano was one of the rats, and he was the one that testified, right, essentially, at the beginning of trial, or cooperated with the government right at the beginning of trial, and ended up taking the stand. And he says, yeah, I'm one of the people that beat up Frankie Flowers. So the prosecution's theory is that Angelo Bruno's gone, somebody else is in power, and it was Nicky Scarfo, and Nicky told Frankie, hey, you owe me money. And Frankie said, I don't want to pay you. So that was the prosecution's theory. And then, sort of corresponding with that was another prosecution theory that the newspapers in Philadelphia, for some reason, were talking about this Frankie Flowers guy as somebody of importance, somebody who was a big shot in the area. And whether that was true or not, I don't know, but nevertheless, they were gossiping about it. And so the prosecution said, because there was this gossip in the newspaper that reflected poorly on Scarfo, he must have taken offense to it, and that's another reason, that's another motive for the murder. Whether that's true or not, that's what the prosecution's theory was. So to set up, why they were prosecuting these guys for this crime, that's essentially where we start, is Frankie Flowers being somebody close to Bruno, allegedly, so Frankie Flowers also, what does he do for a living? He's into vending machines. He's into the coin-operated machines that go in bars, and Joe probably remembers from back in the day, and all these restaurants, neighborhood bars, things of that nature, having these coin-operated machines. So that's what he did for a living, and there's a lot of different people who do that as well, right? And so you can imagine business disputes people from other parts of town who may have a similar business, who may have had a motive themselves, right, to
Yeah.
come and attack him. So if I'm a defense lawyer, I'm trying to think about what this guy does for a living and some other people that may have been responsible for what happened. All right, so you've got, essentially this drama that's falsely created by the news. All right, and whether that's true or not, I don't know. But nevertheless, at some point, Frankie Flowers gets killed. All right, so let's put up the Frankie Flowers mugshot so everybody can see what he looks like. And you'll see back in the day, they had those old placards there that give you sort of your old occupation. So it says common gambler.
He was
All right.
fucking ugly. What
Yeah.
the fuck?
How old was he in that
Fuck
picture?
do I know?
He must have been in
Looks
his
108.
40s, I don't know. And then let's go to the next
He
one.
looked 80 back then.
Let's go to the next one, which is the cartoon, I believe. And this kind of sets the story for what we're going to talk about. So what we have is essentially, a murder that happens in 1985. All right, you have a subsequent prosecution of all these individuals. Let's go ahead and read the names. And this is what struck me as a defense lawyer as well, is that they prosecuted 9 guys for this murder.
Okay.
All right, so you got the 9 guys on trial, and then you have the 2 guys
I like
who
that, Nick.
apparently who apparently are involved in it as well, but of course are cooperating with the government. So 11 people to carry out 1 murder. So in this picture here, you've got, apparently Scarfo in blue saying, "You owe me money." And then you've got Frankie Flowers over there with the yellow shirt saying, "I ain't paying you anything." But on the left corner, you've got the newspaper article, "Bruno gone, Flowers rises." And so the Philadelphia Daily News, Joe, you know about them.
That motherfucker.
They wrote some articles essentially trying to say that Frankie Flowers D'Alfonso was the man in charge of Philadelphia, which, by all of my research, was not even close to being true, like not at all. So I don't know how they would have been so negligent in printing something like that, but they did. And nevertheless, the prosecutors sort of rode with it and used it as a major point of the defense theory.
So they create all these stories like they still do.
So the motive in
Trump
theory
there.
the motive in theory at trial is that Scarfo wanted money, Flowers wouldn't pay. Flowers was getting some notoriety in the newspaper that Scarfo resented, and so there was this animosity there in conjunction with the money that was owed, and that was the motive for the murder.
Okay.
So you've got all of these individuals who are tried. You've got Mr. Scarfo himself. You've got Francis Iannarella, Joe Lagambi, your father, Salvatore Merlino, Philip Narducci, Frank Narducci, Nick Milano, Eugene Milano, who ends up testifying and becoming a rat, and then Lawrence Merlino. So you've got several guys who are part of the original defendant crew, and what's unique in this case and what really causes a major reversal of the conviction is that the prosecutors had the gall and the guts, the chutzpah, to try and get Eugene Milano to cooperate. Now, he's one of the defendants at trial, so for folks to understand how this works, somebody's murdered, there's a prosecution, there's arrest warrants, right? And they go out and they get the people and they arrest them, and then they bring them to court, and now you've got this case that's up and running and eventually set for trial. And Joe knows about going to trial. You prepare for trial well in advance, weeks in advance, months in advance. So when this trial is getting ready to start, one of the defendants, Eugene Milano, has already been talking to the prosecutors, already been cooperating with the state of Pennsylvania. And because of that, he's relaying information to them. But before he decided to cooperate, he's part of the defense team. He's one of the defendants. He's one of the 10 guys there, and the other 9 guys probably have no idea that he's sort of working behind the scenes to testify against them.
He was going to lawyer visits with them, discussing the strategy of the case.
Yeah, so you have what
Motherfucker.
we call joint defense meetings, where the multiple defendants get together with their lawyers. Everybody sits down and you have a powwow. You talk about strategy. You talk about the type of arguments you're going to make. What witnesses are we going to call? If the government calls witnesses, what kind of questions are we going to ask? What type of impeachment are we going to get into? What's our theory in the case, right? And all that stuff is kind of hammered out jointly in a joint defense meeting, and that is supposed to be a confidential defense setting, right? So no defendant from that meeting, no lawyer from that meeting, of course, is supposed to go tell the prosecutors.
Okay, it's like being in a huddle of the opposite team on the football field. Yeah.
Spy in the camp, right?
Yeah, spy in the camp, and that's what happened here. So they made a deal with Milano, but it wasn't revealed to the defense until the trial had already started.
Okay.
So they had already picked a jury. They had already talked about, defense strategy. They had already sort of figured out arguments that they were going to raise and present. And nevertheless, Milano was there, and the prosecutors had been reaching out to him, and he ultimately decided to cooperate. And when he did so, every defense attorney was ready to object and say, what are you doing? This guy's been sitting with us for weeks now, and all of a sudden he's a prosecution witness. That's an invasion of our sort of defense camp. That's a Sixth Amendment violation. And you ought to grant a mistrial. So the judge didn't, and they had to bring it up on appeal. But believe me, they argued about it before the trial got started, and the judge didn't grant it. So the trial has to go on. And so now the defense lawyers have got to figure out, what am I going to do to question this guy? What type of theory are we going to have with him as a witness? And so that was, what the defendants in that particular trial faced with that situation. And that is extremely rare. It's not supposed to happen. And if it does happen, a prosecutor is supposed to take a lot of effort to insulate themselves. There really should be a separate team, a taint team as they call it, a separate team of prosecutors responsible for negotiating and dealing with that defendant who's now going to cooperate and plea. And it shouldn't be the two prosecutors who are trying the case. Who are hoping to hear about defense strategy, who are hoping to anticipate what the defendants are going to do because they're on the other side and they want to win, right? But when you're getting inside information from somebody who's been in the huddle, it's not fair anymore. And so the appellate court made a very big distinction about that and reversed the case.
But they went to trial. They got life.
Life.
But then it was funny after they won the appeal when it took fucking almost 10 years, right? Long.
Yep. Yeah, the appeal took several years. So the timeline was that Flowers is murdered in '85. The trial doesn't start until 1988.
Yeah, well,
and the appeal doesn't come down until 1992.
Yeah.
So several years, and of course everybody's in jail pending appeal. No one's getting bond. No one's getting out pending appeal.
Plus, they all had. My father had 45 years with the feds. Nicky had 50. They had fed time too. But when they took them back, it's funny. Back to trial, they never, because Nicky Whip, he testified against his brother Gene.
Yeah.
When they went back to trial, they never charged Nicky Whip with the murder.
So some of the evidence, some of the prosecution theory had to be a little different in the second trial due to the passage of time, due to issues like you just discussed there, and the case wasn't nearly as effective at that point. But by that point, the defense lawyers had a lot of opportunity to analyze, the discovery, the evidence, the impeachment information, and they were able to do a much better job because they were more prepared.
Gotcha.
Right? It was more fair. And, after the second trial, of course, there's a big not guilty verdict.
Now, the first trial, Joe, you weren't at the first trial, correct?
I was in jail.
You were in jail.
The second one, I was there.
He's eating and drinking okay?
Yeah, perfectly.
That's all he does is eat and drink.
And sleep.
Eat, drink, and sleep. It's the best life. And not pay bills.
Any questions or concerns for Doc today?
I mean, just his allergies, I guess.
Yeah, and just want to overall check.
Yeah, just to check, make sure his legs are all right.
We're just going to do some yearly blood work today, and then Doc will come in and do his physical exam, and then we'll go from there.
All right, sounds good.
We do sprays and neuters, but we also do emergency surgeries on the weekends and all during the week. We have
Really?
surgeons here that do surgeries a lot less expensive than our
Competitors.
I wouldn't say competitors, but just like the corporate-owned places around here.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't know you do surgeries in-house.
Yeah, we started that last March.
So how long have you guys been in business for here?
It will be 2 years. Yeah, 2 years, I think, in due days.
Oh, wow.
Been here for 2 years,
Yeah, that's amazing. Family owned and operated.
We're 7 days a week. We have 2 doctors on every single day, and we're 8 to 8. No appointments.
No appointments, walk in.
Walk in on.
Love it. Come on, buddy.
All right, buddy.
All right.
We got to lift them up.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Let's show the picture of the crime scene, and then we'll get to the other one. So the murder itself was in broad daylight.
Okay.
And, you guys know the neighborhood because you're from South Philly, but allegedly occurred around 9th Street and the Italian Market.
Yeah,
What's that like now?
90. That's still the Italian.
Still there?
Yeah.
A lot of people around?
Italian
So this
Market's
was in
alive.
broad daylight, and so you've got the crime scene here. You can see the corner store. You can see the blood. So he's killed sort of on the corner of an intersection, right in the middle of town. The Italian Market's nearby. There's going to be a lot of people around. So that's the crime scene photo from the trial.
And there was no witnesses, no.
Yeah, you can take that. So one of the things that's interesting about this case is it started off as a death penalty case. And so any lawyer who's facing a death penalty case, a death penalty jury, has to take a bunch of different things into consideration. Number one is that the jurors, they got the pitchforks out on the death penalty case because they're thinking that the facts must be the worst of the worst. This must be the worst kind of case the prosecutors can bring if they're seeking the death penalty. Well, what happened in the first trial was that the evidence was not strong enough, and the judge tossed that consideration from the jury. All right, because it just didn't meet the legal threshold. Judges are allowed to do that. They're allowed to toss charges. They're allowed to take away the death penalty if they don't think that the evidence is sufficient enough to get to that point in some jurisdictions. So in Philadelphia, they're allowed to do that, and that's what this judge did. But you have a jury that's now been prejudiced and kind of poisoned, so to speak, about the nature of a death penalty case, and so you kind of have people who are more willing to convict, in my opinion, as a defense lawyer, on a death penalty jury than you would otherwise.
Yeah, if they're going to kill you, they'll send you to jail for life. They got no problem fucking giving you electrocution. You think they're going to worry about sending you to jail for life?
Yeah.
So the aggravating factors that warranted a jury trial, allegedly, according to the prosecution in the state of Philadelphia, was the fact that there was some people nearby. There was a couple children. There was a kid selling water ice. There was another kid nearby, and one of them may have gotten some gunpowder on them, a little spray from the bullets, but there were no other injuries. And evidently the prosecutors thought that was enough to seek the death penalty. That's not enough. But so the first case had a lot of problems, and that was part of it. So they go to appeal, and they probably argue 20 different things. When you go to appeal, you're going to try and present as much as you can as by way of argument as possible in order for there to be something for the appellate court to hang their hat on. And so the appeal, focuses on a whole bunch of things, and part of them was this death penalty. So for those of you who've never read an appellate opinion before, this is kind of what it looks like. And it's really long. All right, this one here is 60 pages.
A lot of fucking pages.
Yeah, it's a lot of pages. A lot of pages because of a lot of issues. And so every defendant is allowed to raise legal issues on their behalf, and some of them merge together and some of them are distinct. But like Joe was saying earlier, some of these individuals also had other cases going on in and around the same time. Some of them also had other sentences that they had to do for the feds. And so, this wasn't the only thing jamming them up at the time, but nevertheless, for Mr. Lagambia it was, and so some of these people that this was all they were facing.
Uncle Joe got right out.
Right out.
So it's interesting for a bunch of reasons, and the legal principles are important for me. So not invading defense camp is just huge, right? If you're in a multi-defendant trial, so it's not just Joe, it's Joe and 3, 4, 5, 6 other guys. There's going to be multiple lawyers there, right? And everybody has these joint defense meetings. Everybody has these powwows, so to speak, before trial on strategy, on how we're going to question the witnesses. And so, letting a prosecution snitch, a rat, into that group is one of the most, fundamental rights that were, trampled upon, really. And so it's unusual for that reason. And then during the trial itself, the prosecutors made several disparaging remarks, several improper comments that were the subject of appeal. And so they were calling the defendants wolves and criminals and scumbags, and
closing argument, right?
Closing argument, yep. And they were referring to Italians as a bunch of hoodlums, and so they were sort of denigrating Italians as a people. They were making disparaging remarks about the defendants, such that you're not supposed to do that as a prosecutor, right? It's a jury. It's up to a jury to determine whether somebody has been convicted of a crime as a convicted criminal, and that was one of the things that they did that was improper, is it just made a bunch of improper arguments. Prosecutors get so fired up, they sometimes, in the heat of battle, start making arguments and start making characterizations, comments that they should not. And at some point, it rises to the level where now the jury has been poisoned, and a jury can't be expected to render a fair and impartial verdict because of the inflammatory comments that the prosecutor's making. And they come in there with all this authority of representing the state, and we're the ones that are here to protect the community. And so jurors are somewhat naturally inclined to kind of believe a prosecutor a little bit. And when they start making improper comments like that, it affects the integrity of the whole trial.
I had a motherfucker, Barry Gross, in my federal case. He started crying, closing arguments. I swear to God, tears. Turned around, said, pointed to me. Said, look, don't let him fool you. He's a murderer. He's this, he's that. He looks like a kid, but he's not. Motherfucker, crying, tears.
Crying.
The motherfucker was better than fucking Al Pacino.
So let's talk about some of the specific misconduct that occurred. So Eugene Milano before trial, he of course is sitting, and let's pull up the cartoon there where it says Milano the rat at trial. So he's sitting at, like we're sitting at a table, and there's the three of us. Well, he's one of them. All right, and we all may be talking about, hey, how do you think the trial's going to go, or how do you think the lawyer's going to do, or what do you think we should talk about with this witness? And he's sitting there all the while knowing that he's going to go back to the prosecutors and tell them what we've been talking about, because he wants to get a sweetheart deal. I mean, he doesn't want to do time in prison, and the only way he's not going to do as much time in prison as he was originally going to do is if he cooperates and if he rats, and in many instances, if he lies, and embellishes, and makes the sort of the prosecution more
do no
fruitful.
time. He didn't do no fucking
So he
time.
sat at the table during jury selection. You see him there. He's got that kind of thought in his mind. I'll cut a deal with the feds today. They have no idea. And that's what he did. He's sitting there. Right? The jury's there. You've got people in the audience. Court's in session. All of these things are going on. And in his head, he knows he's going to cooperate.
Yeah,
and so does the prosecutor.
Well, you know what's funny? He's sitting at the defense table picking a jury, right?
Yeah.
And then the trial starts. He ain't there no more, and he comes on the fucking stand. What the fuck?
So that's one of the issues
That's
that the
pretty
lawyer
wild.
had to deal with is Judge, what is the impression the jury is left with now that one of these guys was sitting here, like you just said, preparing for the trial, picking the jury, doing all those things that you do in court before you start the trial, and then all of a sudden he's not there anymore. And then they see him come in during one of the days of the 3-week trial, and now he's pointing the finger at everybody else that he was sitting with.
Joke.
Yeah.
And so the jury's, saying,
They gotta be
well, what the
confused.
hell happened?
That happened to me with the armored car. Fucking Richie Burrow, that motherfucker.
Yeah.
We picked the we made opening. My lawyer Sandy Witter fucked up. We made opening statements. It was me and my co-defendant. Opening statements. He had an alibi where he was, everything. My lawyer made his statement. The next day, 2 days later, he flipped.
Yeah.
Right? So the fucking judge was good, Shapiro. I didn't know. The lawyer, we should have never asked for a mistrial. The lawyer asked for a mistrial. We should have made him fucking, because he was going to get on the stand. He got on the stand and say, motherfucker, you just, yesterday his lawyer got upset he had an alibi. Now you got no alibi?
Yeah.
And I got a mistrial, went back to trial, and I got found guilty.
Then he was on Team USA, and that was the end.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, so it's very hard to go to trial and win on appeal, right? You lose, you file your notice of appeal, you start making those arguments. It's very hard to achieve what these defendants and the lawyers achieved in this case is they got a sort of a complete reversal. All right, the appellate court reversed not only on the Sixth Amendment grounds of the infiltration into the defense camp, but they would have reversed anyway, just for the prosecutorial misconduct on the arguments that were made, the improper comments that were made, the things that were said. Part of the prosecutorial misconduct was also about some initiation that was done with some of these individuals. So there was this theory in the case that these individuals were working for Scarfo, and in order to work for Scarfo, you had to have committed a murder. And in order to be part of his group, you had to have done that.
All alleged.
bullshit.
Yeah, all bullshit. All bullshit. But that's
makes it sound good.
But that's what the prosecution's theory was, and because they presented that theory, it made it seem as though these other individuals had already committed murders,
Of course,
in
yeah.
their prior history, but no evidence was presented of that. Right. So you're essentially telling the jury these folks are of a certain group, of a certain class, they hang around with a certain person, where the prerequisite is to commit a murder. And so, but no evidence is presented to show that they ever did any of that. And so you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that. There's other ways to try your case. There's other ways to prove it. And so the appellate court found that absolutely improper.
Wow.
To bring that up, to make that as part of your theme, as part of your theory, is that these individuals were prior murderers who had it in their history. And then the ones that kind of wanted to be with Scarfo, they needed to do it for initiation purposes. That was a big theory in the case. And the appellate court said that's improper. You got to try this case another way. You can't go in there with that same routine, with that same argument.
Well, that's like in the feds, too, with that 404B. That's the worst fucking...
So 404B is a rule of evidence that allows the federal government prosecutors to bring in what they call similar fact evidence, right? So evidence of other crimes, evidence of other wrongdoings that you may have done in your life, they want to bring into the trial that you're facing now so they can tell the jury what a bad guy you are.
But that had nothing to do with what you're on trial for now.
Listen.
Yeah, that's wild
They
to me.
could bring in... They did it with me. I got acquitted. They could bring acquitted conduct, but they can't tell a jury you're acquitted of it.
So they basically make you look like an animal, so them find you guilty.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
fucking
you were
nuts.
acquitted and not guilty before.
And you can't tell a jury you're acquitted.
That's so
Uncharged,
unfair.
acquitted. It's fucking joke. It's fucking crazy.
And what a lot of people don't know either is in federal court at sentencing, you can be held accountable for conduct that you were acquitted for. So you can get found not guilty
Relevant conduct.
for count 2, 3, 4, 5, but you could get found guilty of count 1. The judge can take into consideration counts 2 through 6 when he sentences you on count 1, even though you were found not guilty of the other. That's crazy.
That's a wild theory.
I've been practicing over 20 years, and I still don't understand.
And 90% of the judges do it. 98%. Fuck my say.
That's one of the more unfair things that happens in court is when they take into consideration these other crimes, this other conduct that hasn't been charged or hasn't been proven. And with 404B conduct, you're talking about conduct that is not part of the indictment. It's not something that a jury is necessarily asked to find beyond a reasonable doubt. There's a lesser standard there, and they've got to, the prosecutor's got to have some connection, but they're able to show it for motive, for planning, for identity, lack of mistake, modus operandi, all of that stuff. There's a laundry list of things that allow them to get it in. The exception swallows the rule.
When I was on trial with the Sedano murder in New York, I mean in North Jersey, after I just got acquitted, I beat it. I had to go back. They came to me. The trial would have lasted fucking 3 days, 4 days. They wanted me to stipulate that I was involved in organization. I ain't stipulating nothing. They said, if you don't stipulate, we're going to bring in the 404B material. All the crimes I beat in Philly, the trial was over a month. After we talked about the murder I was charged with, the trial would have lasted 4 days.
Right, yeah.
They talked. I said, I ain't stipulating nothing. Fuck you. And they brought everything that I was acquitted of, they brought it in, and you can't tell the jury that you were acquitted of it.
And then you beat it again.
They want to make you look like Charles Manson, the motherfucker.
That's crazy.
Crazy.
Yep.
But look what they come to you and say to you that you have to do unless they're going to do that. That's insane.
Fuck you. I ain't stipulating to nothing.
And so some of these trials take a while for these reasons because they get into areas of evidence that ought to not necessarily be presented. The Frankie Flowers murder trial was about 6 weeks. You had 3 weeks of picking a jury, 3 weeks of trying the case. So that's a fairly long time, but you've been in cases longer than that.
Yeah,
so some of these trials can go on for a while. It just depends on the amount of evidence that they intend on producing, and they'll go point by point. They take their time, and everybody's got to understand that the federal government will not be outspent. So they come to trial with an army of people, right? You got multiple prosecutors, you got multiple assistants, you got the FBI agents, their side of the courtroom is packed with personnel and people and resources ready to try the case. And you got to do everything you can as a defendant and as a defense lawyer to kick ass in there and try to rebut that.
When they had the jury in the Sedano murder, when they had the verdict, we're this side, my family sits behind us, and then on that side, they had fucking 700 agents in the room. They must have thought they won.
Yeah.
As soon as they said not guilty, they flew out of there.
There's nobody
the
left.
Courtroom was on fire.
Yeah.
Motherfuckers.
If you're looking for Skinny Joey's to cater your party, contact us 24 hours in advance. You could call the store, you could DM us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, wherever we're at, message us. We'll cater the big game party for you. Come over here, Q. You can look a nice cheesesteak right here. We do cheesesteak trays. We do your chicken wing trays. We're going to post a menu also, and we're exclusively on DoorDash for the big game and every day. And if you ain't ordering from Skinny Joey's Cheesesteaks, you already know you're an absolute bed bug.
And another thing that with the retrial, when we get into the retrial, I went to the case.
Yeah. Pull up the picture of Joe. So Joe had the fortunate experience of being able to go watch this, and so for the second trial, he goes in and he watches.
My father was on trial. This is how sick these fucking people are. They made the courtroom. Did you ever hear this, Nick? Bulletproof.
Yeah, tell me about that, because that, number one, is extremely uncommon. I have heard about it. I've never experienced it myself. But for them to do that, they would have had to have extraordinary current information that there's some kind of threat to the people involved in the trial, because that's prejudicial to the jury. Hey, there's a trial here that I'm sitting on, and these people got to have fucking bulletproof just for us to be able to try the case.
Where the spectators sit, the back of the courtroom. Then it's got like the bench, where the courtroom is. They had fucking bulletproof glass this thick, the whole courtroom.
Jesus.
But meanwhile, when you go downstairs to come in, you got to go through a metal detector. Then you go in the elevator, you get off. Before you go in the courtroom, there was a metal detector, and they had a guy with the fucking wand.
Yeah.
What the fuck you need bulletproof glass for? You couldn't get a fucking paper clip in.
Yeah. Well-
You had a safety pin. If you had it in your pocket, you couldn't get in.
And the jury's probably looking like
Listen,
they got bulletproof glass here.
The
jurors are
you
scared,
couldn't
they're
hear.
nervous.
Like usually, you could hear them talking. They had microphones because you couldn't hear. Fucking the whole room bulletproof. Now you're going to tell me that ain't prejudicial?
Yeah, so that's prejudicial.
Fucking
The
jury.
jury's going to be sitting on that thinking, man, these must be some tough guys, some bad guys
Yeah.
to take all this kind of security precaution for this trial.
Yeah.
I'm concerned as a juror that
Right.
perhaps these individuals are more dangerous than the evidence seems to show.
And you were leaving the courtroom.
Well,
They took pictures of you.
Yeah, bulletproof courtroom. And then the first question they asked during jury selection, because I was there, it's my father.
Yeah.
Do you know Joey Merlino? And then they tried to get me barred from the courtroom, the prosecutor. They said they didn't want, the judge said, no, it's my fucking father. I'm here for my father. Fuck you mean? They tried to get me barred. They got acquitted, and they deliberated fucking 3 hours, 4 hours.
Tried to get him thrown out of the courtroom.
Yeah, sick.
So for the retrial on this Frankie Flowers case, the defendants do get acquitted, right? And that's just amazing. That what happened? So clearly the defendants and their lawyers had more time to go over the evidence, more time to study prior inconsistent statements from Del Giorno and from Milano, right? So you're starting to uncover all the deals that they got, all the crimes that they committed. Del Giorno was an admitted murderer, right? So he had, murders under his belt. He had a lot of impeachment issues, a lot of reasons for a jury not to believe. And he was the one that got in trouble while he was cooperating,
Listen,
right? I think they bought him prostitutes.
This New Jersey State Police took him. They hid him somewhere in the mountains. He said, I want hookers. They said, no problem. They called hookers up.
Yeah.
They got him hookers.
You're
You're going to tell me something ain't fucked up with this? I mean, come on.
Imagine a jury isn't made aware of that, right?
Yeah.
Mr. Government.
Well, why don't they
witness-
tell them that instead of saying all the other stuff?
Yeah, well, they don't, and they should. And so, lawyers like myself want that information.
Of course.
If you have information that a government witness is committing crimes, misconduct on the government payroll, on the government watch, that's something you want to get into right away, because most jurors will not believe what a rat has to say if they understand that they're also committing crimes or they're also doing things for their own financial benefit. And almost all of them do.
Yeah.
They just can't help themselves. All right, but we're not given that information though, right? You have to work really, really hard to uncover it, to use it effectively at trial, to be able to present it to the jury. And if the prosecutor is hiding that and not disclosing those things, they know about it, but they're not telling you because they don't want their witness to look bad, that you can't defend the case like you're supposed to.
You know what's funny? My father had another case. They had a CCE case in federal court, and they had Del Giorno and Caraman. They were the witnesses. They got acquitted. Whatever. 6 months later, they had the Testa murder case, and we're in the courtroom, and this lady's sitting next to me, and she's looking at me. I said, this lady looks familiar. I know her. I can't picture her. She said, how you doing? I said, how you doing? I said, where do I know you from? She said, I was a juror on your father's last case, on the CCE case. I said, really? She said, yeah, 'cause I knew she looked familiar,
Right.
She says, we didn't believe one word the rat said. Not one word, because they got acquitted quick.
Yeah.
She said, we didn't believe one word. I can't believe they put these people on the stand.
Wow.
God bless her. She
Yeah.
came to watch.
She came to watch,
She wanted
yeah.
to watch.
So everybody should understand that jurors have the ability, the uncommon ability in a criminal trial to either believe or disbelieve anything that a rat says. So they don't have to believe one word that the rat says. They can discredit the entire testimony. And lawyers will get up there, defense lawyers will get up there and argue to the jury that they should do that because the witness has been caught lying, he's not truthful, you can look at the way he's been responding to the questions, right? You just ought to not believe him. And they have that ability. The law says you can discount any of the testimony if you're a juror. And so that's what defense lawyers like myself will go in there and argue, is that the testimony was incredible, they've been caught lying, they're not somebody that you should have any credibility in at all.
Well, it's funny because they get on the stand. They also, I lied I lied my whole life. My whole life's a lie.
But today
now
I'm
I'm
telling
telling
the
the truth.
truth.
I don't
Now
fucking
I'm
want us
telling
to
the
believe
truth.
you. Your whole life you lied every fucking day. Ralph said on stand one day, the average person lies twice a day.
What did he lie today?
fucking meaning lies twice a day.
Wow.
Yeah, the Frankie Flowers case was important for other reasons as well, and it's that there was no physical evidence, linking any of these defendants. 9 of them, no physical evidence linking any of them to the case. So no DNA, no fingerprints, no eyewitness testimony. Hey, I saw that specific individual. I've identified him in a photo lineup. None of that. The case was built, almost entirely on Tommy Del Giorno and Eugene Milano.
2 liars, 3 liars.
2 liars. So they were able to come in and sort of set the background for how this murder was set up. So, allegedly there was this meeting at a Asian restaurant, Wok, restaurant, something like that it's called, and Scarfa was there, and all these other people were there. Your dad was there, your uncle was there, all these other people were there, and they're all talking about conspiring to kill this guy. How convenient for the prosecutors that everybody's there
Yeah.
talking about it, right? And you know,
sounds
yeah,
it's like a
Phil,
movie.
my uncle made me do it, Leonetti,
Yeah, Leonetti, that
was
mother-
there too, but of course he's not charged because he was given a grant of immunity to testify. But they
My uncle
they
never
didn't
got
have
charged
Phil
neither, that
testify.
rat motherfucker. My uncle never got charged neither.
So you know, it's one of those situations where there were other people involved, but at the same time, as a defense lawyer, I just have a lot of questions about the facts, the prosecution theory. Does it really take 11 people to plan something like this? One of the other parts of the testimony was that the individuals who were asked to kill Frankie Flowers had to track him down for 6 months. They couldn't find him. South Philadelphia, how big is it?
Fucking guy.
I mean, and
As
when
big as this room.
And
He's
when
on
they
the
do
corner
kill
every
him-
day.
When they do kill him, he's right in the fucking corner in the middle of the neighborhood in front of
bullshit.
everybody. So
It
like
sounds
all
good.
of a sudden one day he just goes out and is there and available to be shot. But for 6 months he was hiding.
It's all bullshit.
You know, so that didn't make sense to
It
me.
makes it sound good.
It does make it sound good because it makes it sound like it's premeditated.
Right.
It makes it sound like they stalked him. It makes it sound like there was a lot of planning and a lot of organization that went into the hit that would have required all these other people that they want to convict. This is a 1, 2, 3 person job at most, not 11 people. I've handled lots of murder prosecutions, and this just seems to be, made up. by
At the end of the day, it
prosecutors to
sells
try and-
newspapers.
to try and get all these people involved. So
They got to quit it.
yeah,
And it
so,
took 10 fucking years.
that stood out to me. You know, the fact that there was that many people allegedly involved, that they had to track them for 6 months, but then when they found them, they had to shoot them in broad daylight in front of 2, 3 kids.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, who knows who it was? So, as a lawyer, I'm thinking of who else could have been responsible for these things. You know, it's not my client. You know, maybe it's somebody he was in business with. Maybe,
Yeah, who the
maybe
fuck
it's
knows who it
maybe
was?
it's a pissed off business owner that he's taken business from and he's trying to get back at him. Maybe it's somebody else.
What, they
Maybe
sell
it's,
flowers? He might have sold bad flowers or something. Who the
yeah,
fuck
you know,
knows?
it could be downtown Leroy Brown from 52nd
It don't matter, yeah.
Street. It could be anybody. But so those are the things that you're looking at as a defense lawyer. Who else could have done it? You know, why are these people testifying to what they're testifying to? What are the deals that they got? You know, so you got to look into all that. And so if you take a look at Tommy Del Giorno, if you take a look at Eugene Milano, there's a lot of background there to really not believe what they have to say. I think that they were given an opportunity to try and get as many of these defendants at the table as possible, and they took that opportunity and said, yeah, he was there, he was there, he was there, he was there.
Yeah.
And it's that easy
Yeah.
for a rat to say that because you don't have to have independent evidence that they were there. I don't have to take a picture. I don't have to have surveillance showing that they were there. It's my word, it's my testimony that proves that they were there. But that's why a jury should not believe it. You ought to have other corroborating evidence to show the planning, the organization, and all that. And they didn't have that in this case.
We had a good jury. Good, you know, listen, they were fair. I mean, that's all you want is be fair.
And it's not easy to get a fair jury
No.
because they're coming in with a degree of prejudice anyway because it's a criminal case. Like I said, the pitchforks are out sometimes, and it takes, you know, obviously a tremendous showing by the defense lawyer to be able to swing the scales of justice the other way.
Yeah, I agree.
The way you broke it down is phenomenal. And everybody who's watching right now, you know, if you need anything, you could contact this man right here. He'll answer anybody. Nick, where could everybody find you at also?
My website, MatassiniLaw.com, my last name plus LAW.com. Reach out, email me, give me a call. Happy to help out.
We hope you don't need them.
Yeah, but if you do, make sure you contact him. He's always there to help you out, always answer the phone. Nick, we really appreciate every single time you're on the podcast. 4 episodes, the best. We appreciate it.
Snuff, you might need them for the guy who did your teeth.
My teeth look phenomenal.
Fuck
They
And
look
so does
good,
my
they're nice
tan.
and shiny.
You might need a
Always
fucking
happy to
lawyer.
be here, guys.
Thank you, Nick.
You might need a
Fantastic
fucking
show.
lawyer for them fucking teeth you got.
We'll see you next time. The Skinny with Joey Merlino and Lil Snuff.
Life is a casino. We don't sink, we just hit them off with C-notes. And you can bet it all. I'ma be the last one standing tall. Joey Merlino.
What's up, KG?
Life is a casino. We don't sink, we just hit them off with C-notes. And you can bet it all. I'ma be the last one standing tall. Joey Merlino.
With Joey Merlino.